by now you might be thinking, Kate, there seems to be no end to the slope application problems. And if that's what you're thinking, you're right. I'm doing tons of slope application problems here. Why? Because it is a favorite subject of the GED. Too many students spend way too long studying topics that don't come up very often, and way too little studying the GED favorites like slope. So here's a word problem. Let's take a look at it. It says Annette is an administrative assistant. In 20 minutes, Annette can type 1,500 words. So I see this related pattern here. She can type 1,500 words in 20 minutes. In 45 minutes, she can type 3,375 words. Again, I see that same repetitive pattern, the relationship between minutes and words. If Annette were to graph an equation representing the total words she can type based on the number of minutes she has been typing, what would be the slope of the graph? So they very straightforward ask us for slope. We don't have to interpret what they mean. They say, what would be the slope? And so a lot of students will try to start graphing, and that's going to be hard for you because you don't have graph paper in front of you. You just have your little dry erase board, and these are some big numbers to graph. I want you to imagine that you had to count to that. So I don't think graphing would be the best way to do this equation. Instead, what we're going to use is we're going to use a slope formula. So if you look at your GED formula sheet, there is a slope formula. It looks scary for students because they see when they look at the slope formula sheet on that GED formula sheet, it says this, M equals, you're like, what's M? M is the letter we use to stand for slope. I know it's weird that it doesn't start with an S, but it's named after the French word monter, which means to climb. So that's why they use an M for slope, okay? And then it's equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And a lot of students throw up their hands in despair because they think that this formula looks too complicated. But hang with me because it's actually just really a simple formula to use if you realize what these x's and y's are. These x's and y's are just the numbers from points. Remember that points consists of an x value and a y value. And you might wonder, well, what about these little 1s and 2s down there? What does that mean? That just means first and second. So I have a second y and a second x, and a first y and a first x. I'm going to have 2 different points. And if you can see, this problem does have 2 points because it has 2 relationships. First, it has this relationship of 20 minutes to 1,500 words, and then it has the 45 minutes to 3,375 words. Those are points. Let's get our first point. Now, it's super important to know which one is your x and which one is your y. Your y is always your dependent variable. It depends on the other. So think about it. Does the number of words that Annette can type depend on the number of minutes she's been typing? Or does the number of minutes she's been typing depend on the word count? Now, that second statement is just silly, okay? If she types really, really fast, does that mean that time goes faster? No, that's not how that works. Instead, the number of words that she types depends on how long she types. And so because of that, that makes this the dependent variable. And the number of words she types depends. And so that'll be my y. Your dependent variable is always your y. As long as you can place that, then the other one would just fall into place. So in 20 minutes, she types 1,500 words. And then in 45 minutes, she types 3,375 words. Now you have 2 points, okay? This first one, well, let's call this point 1. It really doesn't matter which one you call point 1, as long as you're consistent. So then this will be my first x, my x1, and this will be my first y, my y1. And then the x and y in the other point will be your second x and your second y. And now it's super easy to plug into this formula here. This formula says take the second y and subtract the first y from it. So the second y I had was 3,375. Do you mind if I plug it in up here, guys? So m is equal to, I'm going to take the second y, 3,375, and from that I'm going to subtract the first y, which was 1,500. First y. Okay, and then that's going to all go over the second x, 45, minus, because the formula says minus, the first x, 20. And now students panic like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this math. This is so gross. Well, remember to follow your order of operations, which says work groupings first. The top and bottom of a fraction naturally form groupings. So I'm going to take 3,375 and do the math on top there, subtract 1,500. And when I do that, I'm going to get 1875. So m is equal to 1875. I totally should have given myself more room. And that's still over. And I'm going to do the math on the bottom. There's a grouping down there in the denominator. So 45 minus 20 gives me 25. And now you might be thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do now? Well, notice a fraction bar just means the same as divide. So go ahead and divide that through. So I'm going to take 1875 and I'm going to divide by 25. And I get that we have a slope of 75. What does this slope of 75 mean for us? Now, a student asked me a good question the other day. What would I type in on the GED? You'd probably just type in 75 because it just says what is the slope of the graph, and slope is just answered in a number. So you'd probably just be typing in 75, okay? However, what does this mean to us? Well, notice these things up here on top were the words. 1,875 words, and I see that I can type that many words in 25 minutes. This is 1,875 words in 25 minutes. So that means this is 75 words per minute. That would be the unit or the application of this. But again, yes, you'd probably just be typing in 75 on your GED. Okay, great. Super typical GED problem. You'll have something like this, even if it's not about words per minute, but it's about something per something. So make sure that you understand this problem. Make sure to ask any questions in the comments if you have them.